Jeff Haupt with AI out of Oklahoma City coined a phrase early on, which he said, really what you're trading on now is integrity. We're in the integrity economy, meaning that if you're going to work with other people like that, you have to have absolute integrity. You have to be impeccable with that. You can't have somebody invite you to, well, let's use an analogy the man, the myth, the legend might use, which is you can't invite somebody over to dinner to your house and have them try to sleep with your wife, right? You just can't do that.
No, cut that. I didn't say that. Don't do that. Marcus, help me out here, buddy.
Hey, you're on your own, pal.
Oh, thanks.
Here we go. Right. 1, 2, 3, go. Hey, welcome to episode 290 of Control Talk. Now your smart business video cast and podcast for the week ending November 4th, 2018. I am joined by your co-host of mine, the man, the myth, the legend, who is having a terrible time with the cough, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers. Kenny, man, thanks for getting out of bed and coming to do this today, brother.
Well, actually, I just came from the doctor's office, but yeah, it's don't get a flu shot and go flying on a plane. I had a flu shot and a whooping cough shot. We're getting ready to go visit our daughter, who's having our first grandchild, November 20th, hopefully, and went and visited with you down there to the Honeywell Momentum, but got me something there I don't want, and it's a combination. I think is low immune system because of the flu shot.
Yeah.
Then had something in the airplane. Somebody gave me something I didn't want, and brought it back to Pittsburgh and made it one of my worst friends. It's been with me for 7 days. I can't wait to get rid of it. But we got a great show here. And I'll tell you what, you did a heck of a job lining up some really, really good interviewees.
It's going to be great, isn't it, brother?
This is a learning process. I'll tell you what, every time we have this show and we have these smart guys on the Control Talk now, I think I learn a little bit. So it's just time very well spent. And I think it's just a compliment to the Controltrends community. I think is recognizing that because the viewership is growing. The participation in this year's Controltrends Awards nomination period has been phenomenal, just almost double last year.
Well, it has, and we got to make a quick announcement here regarding that. We've had so many people all over the world, people we've never heard of from, adjacent industries are coming in. We've had several people ask us if we would extend the nomination period a little bit longer. So I think next week's show we will be announcing the finalists in each categories, but we will keep the nomination ballots up for a couple other days. So if you hadn't had a chance to vote yet, vote. And
again, this is the first phase is nomination. So getting the name onto the nomination ballot, and then what's going to happen, Eric, is the top vote getters in the ballot nomination process will go on to become
finalists.
Potential winners in each category. So, but I just thanks you so much for everybody and to seeing all these people participate from, like you said, all the peripheral. Our business was HVAC and building automation. We're seeing people from the lighting world come in. We're seeing people from the security world coming in. We're seeing people from, like you said, all over the world. All 5 continents are participants in this first phase 1 process, and it's exciting because we're seeing a whole new implementation of technology. It's amazing.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. And just to let you master systems integrators know, we got a major candidate coming out of Poland who has quite a number of nomination votes already. So you're going to see some new names on the finalist ballot. And along those lines, Kenny, we'll say we got a lot of participation. There's still some sponsorships open. But I got to tell you, we're going to have a sold-out show this year, so you either better know a sponsor or you better become a sponsor because it's going to be absolutely spectacular. So, well, listen, dude, with that, we have some good stuff on the website, a lot of stuff sort of following along with Honeywell follow-ups with the Honeywell Momentum. You can check that out. But I tell you what, Kenny, without further ado, we're going to give most of the show to the interviewees this week. So let's bring our first guest on.
All righty.
Kenny, man, we got a plethora. I don't know. Vocab word, buddy.
Did I have the high shelf, top shelf here? Okay.
Yeah, buddy. We're bringing out the big vocab words. How about introducing our first guest?
Well, that's easy because the guy we're going to introduce here in the very near future is a well-recognized stalwart in the industry. We've known Mark Peacock now for so many years. It goes back to the Tritium, the or alt days, we used to say. And now Mark is he's the Chief Communication Officer and Vice President of Marketing for LinkSpring. He's also one of the founders and heartbeats of the Sky Foundry, or I'm just going to disregard that, Project Haystack. And he's also our MC of Controltrends Awards. So, I mean, let's take a full paragraph to describe this next guy. But Mark Peacock, welcome to the show.
Welcome,
Hey.
Marcus.
Hey, thanks, guys. Great to see you guys. And I'm counting down the days to the Controltrends Awards and really looking forward to it. And I've noticed the nomination period is going, and it seems to be a lot of nominations coming through. And it'll be very interesting to see the finalists and go from there. So exciting times. Even my wife has said something to me. She says, "Oh, you're giddy all the time." And I go, "Yeah, I'm getting geared up for the Controltrends Awards." So looking forward to it.
Well, and I got to tell you, Mark, it's been our biggest participation yet with the nomination period. We've got new players coming from everywhere, including the IT world. And of course, one of our, I think, most prestigious awards is the Master Systems Integrator of the Year. And as you know, Kenny and you have talked for the last several years about how the face of a Master System Integrator is changing. And at LinkSpring, you got some very, very unique systems integrators you work with. And as a matter of fact, I think you're going to introduce us to a couple of fellows here that are sort of setting a trend for what we think the Master Systems Integrator of the very near future is going to look like. So without further ado, how about introducing two of your friends, and let's get these characters on the show, and let's talk some Master Systems Integration.
Well, this is great, and I appreciate that. Yeah, you said it. They're friends and they're partners, and I'm delighted to bring to the show today Adam Haynes and Justin McCullough, who are part of the FSG group out of Texas. Adam is the senior product owner, and Justin is the chief product officer. And I have to say, we've been working with them for, at least since I've joined LinkSpring, which is 6 years, and Justin and I were talking earlier that they've been a LinkSpring partner for 7, 8 years. And truly, when we start to define a master system integrator, that those that know the OT side, that know the IT side, that can develop custom type solutions and applications depending on the need set of the clients, FSG fits that bill. So instead of me talking about FSG, Justin, Adam, welcome to the show, as we all say all the time, and tell us a little bit about yourselves and FSG.
Sure, thanks for having us. I'm Justin McCullough, and I'm as Mark mentioned, Chief Product Officer here, and also the division leader for FSG Energy. And we're the folks who are really, I think, championing some aggressive moves in controls and enterprise cloud solutions for building automation.
Right, and as was mentioned, I'm Adam Haynes. I'm the senior product owner. I essentially run our software team and our roadmap before we get done month in and month out. It's been an exciting ride so far. We're bringing a lot of software to this OT world and solving a lot of new problems in new ways. And we're excited to be here and talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I tell you what, you guys didn't take the traditional path into our industry, because you guys didn't grow up on rooftops with chillers and all that stuff. Tell us a bit about your background and how you wound up in our industry.
Sure. Yeah, we both come from a tech background. I'll let Adam speak for himself too. We've actually had connections for quite a while. I grew up in the industry back in the 90s, building websites and custom technology solutions way back when you couldn't Google it, right? You actually had to learn it, and this is kind of pre-YouTube, pre-Google. In fact, it was AOL era, and I had an IT startup way back then, and so my whole last 20 years has been in the IT space, and more importantly, solving problems, technology problems. And so that's kind of what brought me to FSG, specifically focused on IoT stuff.
Yeah, my background is a little different even from that. In the tech space, but I actually got started in technology and education. In higher ed, worked through how people learn and grow and understand technology and work with that to kind of expand their own abilities. From that, I kind of fell into a startup where we met Justin here. We ended up getting acquired, and the story kind of goes from there. few years later down the road now, we've been working together, building successful products together. And now we're here at FSG where we're doing the same thing for this commercial IoT building control space.
Very, very cool. Well, I got to ask, who was FSG before you guys arrived on the scene, and who is FSG now?
That's a great question. You know, FSG is a large organization. We have over 2,000 employees. We have 33 branches and locations in the United States, and we're best known really in the electrical and contracting space. So we do a variety of disciplines, including signs, solar, which is actually here out of the energy group. We also have electricians that are doing electrical construction. We have electrical services, lighting. It's anything that's oriented to making sure these facilities run smoothly, really from the ground up, from electrical to lighting to controls. So that's what FSG is. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't help. I'm cherry picking your website, and I see how big it is, and it's a very impressive organization. But you're out of the Dallas area, correct?
We're actually in North Austin, the Round Rock area.
Yep.
Okay, right. All right. Well, then what I'm trying to do now is tie you into Mark Peacock and LinkSpring, because ultimately, when we talk about master systems integration, clearly you have the IT side that we call that cheating. When you come into OT side, it's not fair. You have an advantage on the network and the routers and things that give us the kind of scare us away sometimes, primarily with cybersecurity. Our job was just give me the IP address and then, get this network set up and then run. No, I'm kidding. But now we're seeing how we have a responsibility in the cybersecurity world. We have a responsibility. So we now see a migration of our people in the operational technology primarily, that we're basically integrators for HVAC. As Eric mentioned, equipment, and then the famous five, you got the Honeywell, Johnson, Siemens. Now you have Schneider and LinkSpring. Hey, Eric, I had that. Thanks for covering my back.
Mark was going to take everybody off the air if you didn't mention that.
Guys, you're taking away my stuff now. Come on, give me a break. No, anyhow. So what I'm trying to do is we saw this bridge coming. Eric and I do the Controltrends, and we track the trends. So probably about 4 years ago, Fred Gordy and a couple other guys, Mark Peacock, took us aside and said, hey, look, there's this operation technology. That's things that turn off and on. That's your heating controls, your chiller plants, your elevators, things that really truly turn off and on and modulate or whatever and control the air and water flow through buildings. Where IT was primarily data oriented. If somebody cracked your database, you're in bad shape, but you didn't have this extreme urgency that it could be a real problem. So we've seen some interesting things over time where people have taken over utility stations and stuff like that and really scared us. So when you got into the HVAC side, did you come in because you saw something like a LinkSpring solution? You said, you know what, we're in this building already. We could easily manage the HVAC controls if we had, some opportunities there. I mean, how did you make the bridge then from IT to OT in HVAC terms, the building automation terms?
Or did you?
Sure. I think it would be more to say, instead of making a bridge, we kind of built a partnership. So FSG has been in the controls business for about 10 years now, which is much longer than I've obviously been at FSG. And more recently, we're taking the track that all of that OT stuff is hypercritical to the business, but is much more usable by the business as a whole when you tie it in with their IT and their infrastructure from a business standpoint. Part of our goal is to empower more than just facility managers to get the best out of their businesses, to maximize the revenue, to protect from losses. And to do that in a way that doesn't require high skill level.
Now, I would add to that, so previously we came from where Adam and I met up. We were at Anycommerce Group and then Capital One, which is highly invested in security and essentially being the backbone of a way a business operates. And so that's, I think, the strongest correlation with what we see today, because here, we still have high security needs, and even if we're cheating from IT into OT, the truth is the services that are being provided are critical to the buildings. And so what's true, I think, is we've come from high pressure environments where the IT and the OT have to work seamlessly. People can't have downtime. People can't have loss of control and expectation of what those solutions are supposed to do. And so in that way, it feels we both walked in and said, this feels like home. Like, we've done all this before. The only difference is, instead of managing and driving a business on the IT side, now we're managing and driving a business on the building and the physical layer side. And so we're using a lot of those same disciplines, and PCI compliance is huge for small business owners who are transacting credit cards. So we have that background already. And so talking to folks like LinkSpring, that's sort of our gateway into saying, okay, there's a lot of problems we don't have to solve. We can go straight to a solution like what Mark and those guys are doing, and say, hey, I want this, and could you do that? And maybe we kind of jiggle the handle a little bit, and they're like, yeah, their engineers are saying, yeah, absolutely, we can make that wireless, or we could add this particular set of capabilities to this hardware for you. And then next thing you know, we have a best of breed solution we can go back to our customers with, which we like that. I mean, that's a part of us being creative problem solvers in technology.
So
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, on these solutions, can you, I think what I find fascinating, one of many things fascinating with working with you guys, is the solutions that you guys develop for particular markets. I think, how about sharing with the audience some of those types of solutions and for those particular markets?
Sure, absolutely. And to your point, there's several markets we work in, but kind of the most recent example, and the one we're focusing most right now, actually, is C-stores. So convenience stores. So if you think about it, there's thousands of them all over the country. Every little town has a few of them even. But they all have problems because of their footprint. They haven't been heavily invested in the market for controls and for optimization. So they have a lot of waste and a lot of challenges that are wasted labor and wasted product because of this. So when we go into a C-store and when we're approaching this market, we don't just think about the typical controls. I think everyone always defaults to lighting and HVAC, right? So we start there because those are obvious. HVAC is a huge energy offender, and lighting can be as well in some scenarios, and as well as appliance security. But when it comes to these convenience stores, they care about their gas pumps and the security of the credit card credits out there. So we actually have worked with some gas station companies, or some C-stores, to provide a solution for that, so that their employees can be aware when there's someone tampering with the pump, so they can prevent those losses and protect their customers. We've discovered that things like the beer cave and the reach-in deli cooler sometimes incur thousands of dollars in loss in a single month, which is more than pays for the equipment it takes to monitor it. So they have these ultra-short ROIs that they just weren't aware of, and we're able to protect revenue, help them generate revenue, and ultimately protect their business reputation at the same time.
So from our perspective, go ahead.
Please. No, please.
I was just going to say, from our perspective, we're thinking about the entire operation and what's happening in those four walls, from the slushy machine to the credit card processing at the pumps, all the way into the typical expectation of their high margin cold products and their hot products, which ultimately turns into a data problem, right? Because we look at it from a portfolio perspective. Most of our customers have hundreds, if not thousands, of sites, and our solutions are geared really towards those kind of environments where you want to make sense of hundreds of locations all at once. And so our software approach really is around making sense of all that, and then highlighting, like, here's the rooftop units that are a problem, here's the credit card issues that are happening at the pump that are a problem, here's the beer caves that are shutting down or showing some sort of anomalies that need to be checked into for preventive maintenance and things like that.
Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you guys, all you guys, is, because what I'm hearing is, we're talking about master systems integration and the evolution of master systems integrator. It sounds like one of the things you guys do that's different is you're taking our hardware, like LinkSpring hardware, that has really cool stuff in it, and then you guys are writing custom software solutions to integrate with that. And I guess Ken and Mark and you guys too, I'd ask, is this going to be what's required to be a master systems integrator going forward?
Here, Mark will start. I think yes, to that point, because again, it's all about meeting the particular customer's expectations and their challenges. And I think as more and more of our, as connectivity expands to things other than HVAC, or in addition to HVAC lighting, as Adam had mentioned earlier, like what Justin mentioned, the slushing machine. Who ever thought we'd be connecting into a slushing machine? But, but if I'm a customer and I walk into one of these convenience stores, I want a slushy, and I go and the machine is out of order, then I may not come back there that next time. So again, it's all about that customer experience and things like that. Again, not only from the temperature and the lighting and everything else, but to the beer caves and all of that type of stuff. And I think that's how these convenience stores are helping distinguish themselves, is through that customer experience. And it's this world of IoT. Yes, you've got to be able to customize things.
Well, I would agree. And the idea of the convenience store, and as Eric and I always talk about the race to the small space, that's one of the small spaces. And I think that one, because of the energy consumption, because of the amount of energy that it consumes and the amount of real money that's transacted there every day, you've got to really be a watchdog. And so the custom application solution, first of all, let me say that I'm, again, cheating on your website, and you have over 6,500 installed locations across the country. So that is a mega scale. That's much larger than the most systems integrators. And that you won the 2018 Niagara Innovator. I'm sorry, you were one of the finalists, but that just showed that in this very competitive, innovation world, that you were recognized for the custom application that you did do. But I mean, for the Controltrends community, just every time you walk into one of these convenience stores, you might not realize that there's things like everything from, we talked about the ice cream freezers maybe, but the beer cave maybe, all right, and the ice bin, but the grill tops, freezers, fryers, deli cookers, food warmers, car counters, hot dog machines, soda and slushie machines, parking lots, signs, plugs. And so there you're talking stacked up, a serious amount of energy that's being consumed on site. So and in fact, we used to work with an energy company that one of the top consumers after manufacturers of electricity were your convenience stores and your McDonald's and your fast food stores, because the amount of heavy duty equipment they got in the fryers or whatever that are very large, energy consumers. So I think it's a great job. Again, I still have to get more granular in terms of products, because we love to hear. You guys are in a very, very interesting situation, because I think what you are is that you're very astute in the IT world, and you were very adept in the BAS world. In other words, HVAC did not pose a problem for y'all, not because basically it boils down to points on a network, and you guys are good at that. But what type, have you seen an advancement of our footprints? In other words, we used to be considered expensive. We used to have controllers that were, people would say, that's it's great stuff, but the softwares and everything was too arduous. Have you seen a refinement in our industry, maybe through LinkSpring, as being a better conduit fit for what you guys do as a business?
I think the short answer is absolutely yes. Some of the things that we're pretty ambitious about, for one, we believe it needs to be open. And so we try to keep as many solutions intact as already there. So we adopt rather than abandon, right? So we don't rip and replace. We try to come in and adopt what's there, which of course is part of the banner of being an MSI in this industry in this time, because some of these controls and solutions are extremely expensive. And so folks come in and they get a little nervous that you might be talking about a strategy that has to have them walk away from millions of dollars already invested. And so that's one key thing that we do right away. And LinkSpring is a fundamental and integral part of that solution, because we come in and we're able to get very creative in how we adopt what's in there already. So that's one big part of it. The other part is because of that approach, we also have a strong appetite to show how much business intelligence we can bring, how many controls and energy efficiency capabilities we can bring with the least amount of dollars. And so instead of trying to drop a really big price tag, that's another part of where LinkSpring helps us, as well as some of these IoT solutions and some of the wireless sensors and things like that, where we're able to come in, and it's not uncommon for us to get half the price of what an incumbent is charging or someone else is bidding, with 2 or 3 times more to offer, right? And I don't mean that as a brag point. I'm just simply saying I think we're reaching that kind of crossing point where what is new and what's driving these innovations is going further and further down market, where there's more and more price concern. And we're happy to be in that space, because we're already suited, especially with LinkSpring, to be able to bring about solutions that are not super expensive.
And an important distinction there is how we think about individual accounts are as customers, and we love to say that we want to be their trusted advisor. So we don't ever look at the first time we pitch a customer or we send them a proposal as the only time we're ever going to sell them anything. So it's really for us about building relationships and having them trust us to take care of their problems in the future.
Right.
And we've seen this bear fruit even in our short time. Just this year, accounts, when we go in, we focus on their problems. We don't focus on padding the bid or putting extra things in there because they won't know better. We focus on just making sure that we have the answers to the problems that we've helped them discover sometimes. And because of that, we just trust that if we do the right thing, they'll come back to us.
Awesome.
Well, there's also two parts to that. One is with LinkSpring, we can continue to expand what's capable by going back to that web appliance. And so that means we can continue to make them future ready and even future proof to a large regard. And then, of course, because we have a cloud solution, that means as new desire and they have a bigger appetite as they grow into that solution, we can say yes, and we can integrate more. We can integrate their utilities, or we can integrate a new set of sensors. So in that way, they can continue to capitalize on the investments they've made and grow it rather than walk away from it.
Hey, these guys are pretty sharp, Eric, huh? Holy
Well, no,
moly.
they are, but
I mean, you talk about an elevator stream. I'm sold. I want one of them.
Yeah, I got some questions. So is there truth to the rumor that at your office, you guys actually have a slushy machine and a hot dog machine and all that stuff hooked up, and that if you're going to be a great master systems integrator, you have to have those things in your
Empirical data.
office?
So we do not have a hot dog machine, but we do actually have 2 Slurpee machines.
Okay.
And part of that is because we're approaching new problems, right, that haven't typically been approached by systems integrators. So it takes some research, it takes some R&D, some investment on our parts, and some partnerships with our customers to get the answers. We've got engineers watching Slurpee machine training tech seminars to learn about the problems that they run into and how we can monitor those things and prevent those failures and warn before it happens. So
in fact, that's an interesting thing is pressure apparently is very important in the way those Slurpee machines work, not just electricity, but how's it holding pressure, and being able to have a pressure sensor in there tells you a whole lot about what that machine is doing, as well as vibration sensors.
Perfect.
But what they're not telling you though is they convert twice a week. They convert those slushy machines into frozen margarita machines.
Close proximity to tequila. I get it.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. And your marketing person, Kendall, she's the biggest culprit. So she likes that. So
well, that's a value added right there. Mark, I want to ask you a question before you ask this.
No, go ahead.
Real quick, because guys, needless to say, with your guys' skills, I'm sure every controls vendor on the planet is courting you guys. Talk about LinkSpring. Why LinkSpring? I mean, we handle them, we love them, we think they're great, but from a true master systems integrator standpoint, what is it about LinkSpring you guys like?
I mean, the short answer is they want to be a partner, right? They want to solve customers' problems the same way we do. So when we talk to them, we find a kindred spirit. And to your point, we've talked to other controls manufacturers. We get phone calls and meeting requests constantly. And a lot of what we hear is how to sell product. What's their catalog? And LinkSprings comes to the table talking about what's the problem that needs to be solved, and that's the business they're in, and that's the business we're in. So we love working together for that reason.
Well said.
So here's my question, and again, it's part of the solution offerings that you guys put together for everyone, and something that we're seeing today is the importance of data and connecting, getting that information, analyzing it, and things like that, and then actually having access, like 24/7 monitoring. So can you tell the group about, a little bit about Clarity, which is your cloud data platform, and the 24/7 monitoring capabilities that you guys bring to the table, not just the controls and the things we've already talked about?
Sure. I'll let Adam speak to Clarity, and I'll cover off on monitoring real quick. So we have a dedicated call center, and in that call center, we have all kinds of things that come in. One is we process about 9 million alarms that are coming directly out of those EMS platforms across our portfolio. Some of those are, devices like mediators or BAS views, and some of them are our Clarity solution, because again, we adopt, we don't just replace, right? So out of our portfolio, we're processing a ton of alarms through that call center, and that call center is doing some of it by hand, which is actually just remote diagnostic. They're going in, looking at alarms, seeing if we can troubleshoot and solve them without ever having to escalate. And in those cases, we've resolved something, we've turned it off, turned it back on, we've changed set points, whatever it is that may be needed remotely, and we can prevent those expensive truck rolls by doing that. The other part is when we have HVAC techs out on site and people doing mechanical work, the physical layer work, our guys have mock-ups of those solutions we put in the field directly in our office. And so we can talk to that guy in the field and say, look, it's the black wire and it's the blue box, and you're looking for this and you should do that. And so we can coach these guys who might normally need to spend 2 or 3 hours on site making sense of 2 or 3 rooftop units getting into controls because they're not really identified as controls guys or HVAC guys. And so they can get in and out maybe in 30 minutes by talking to one of our technicians, which of course saves those facility operators a lot of money. And then we have our own custom solution that actually processes those alarms and help us manage priority 1 through priority 4 SLAs. And so from a contract standpoint with those customers, we're able to really keep in check with those highest priority concerns, make sure we get eyes on the right problems, and that all escalates through our call center. So that's on the monitoring side. Adam, you want to talk about the Clarity app?
Sure. So in the cloud is what we call Clarity, to Mark's point. And that's what we do with data and controls, actually. So we integrate with things like Niagara systems and Massview's mediators and all kinds of legacy and competing systems in the market, because ultimately we love to adopt. We love to be the answer. In the cloud, we like to say we're that one pane of glass. You can come in, you can see all your sensors, all your HVAC units, all your lighting zones or fixtures, depending what you have integrated. You can see and control those. And then more importantly, you can access that data. We gather all that data as it changes. So we have millions and millions of points processing through of time series data where you can trend those things in just seconds instead of running reports or collecting it from disparate systems. And you can do that across EMS platforms, which is something that really has been challenging for people in the market before. And we're doing things now that really people haven't seen in the market before from a solution like ours, where just with a few clicks, you can run a regression test on some of your models and your equipment on things that you're collecting every day.
But let's get real, like Black Friday's coming up, right? So like here's a super simple example, not a risky one at all, but we've got 400 sites that need to change their hours of when lights should be on and when the HVAC should run. And we can do that all with a click of a button, changing all of those sites all at once, right? There's no more logging in and out by IP, site by site by site, processing your spreadsheet. We can just make it all happen at once. So that's another example that's maybe hits home a little more easy.
Yep.
Very
Well,
cool.
I want to thank you guys for making the world smaller for me, because when you said the word mediator, I tensed up, because once upon a time we were selling those things, and I remember there was a large contract. I think now some of those convenience stores that come and go was probably the home run, or one of the home runs, because that's exactly what that whole thing was all about, was to do this convenience app. And the biggest and most important thing was the credit cards, and we couldn't swing it. We didn't have the faculties and the resources to really comprehend how big you got to be, and that's where I think the IT advantage. We see Eric and I, again, just to talk about some histories here. We worked with somebody who told us about we're working in a playbook that's already been written for another industry, and so the things that are happening in our industry has already happened. It's like the old deja vu thing of industries, where we are now going through that consolidation. We're seeing a bunch of disruption. It's changing. Partners are changing. But what's incredible in our industry is we're seeing this lateral connections, these lateral connectivities between IT experts and OT experts, and really coming up with a really fabulous product for the customer. But there's one of the things that I reviewed on your website that I really am curious at, and it's a good time to pick your brains on it, and that is plug load. Is there really a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow? I mean, we're seeing some legislations come around, mostly from the West, coming east, about turning plugs off. Everything that has wire to it should be shut off every 15 minutes or every other one. And we're seeing some really interesting engineering, sequencing coming on to this plug. How important in the scheme of things, like with this convenience thing and some of the other commercial applications you have, does plug loads fit into it?
Yeah, it's huge. And one of our customer has 100 locations. They're a multi-tenant building, was about 10 million square feet or so total coverage. And we're going through that exact same problem right now. And in fact, that's something we ran through our lab, because there's some constraints they have with the way they want to do, because they actually, this is kind of a unique situation where the guys that are in the facility management team are old Niagara guys, right? So these are old control guys who already are super smart, very capable and able. And in fact, the funny thing is they showed up at our office thinking they were going to tell us how to do their confusing problem and what they've already done. And then we were able to kind of show them a couple of tricks, and we got one of their things they couldn't figure out how to work. We got it to work the same day. So it was really cool. But anyway, I digress from that. But the point is they want to do this, and they have to, as they do the new tenant improvement, because of different code, like Title 24 in California and ASHRAE 90.1, things like that are requiring it. And so we're working out that solution right now on how they scale that out on their new TIs. And so the key, though, is you've got to, first, I think it's a hardware problem. Because there's different ways that hardware can come about. And one of the things we've had the biggest challenge with, and we've tried several solutions, is actually just the right physical solution to handle those pluggable controllers and being able to turn them on and off with the behavior you're expecting at scale, right? So it's one thing to do it in a small room or maybe a 2,000 square foot building, but it's another thing to do it at scale where you're talking a lot of rooms with a lot of square footage with a lot of PLCs. So I don't want to dominate that, but it's a real challenge to actually execute it well in bigger footprints.
No, but just to give you an idea, that one of the biggest things I worked on with the old days in timers, MH Rhodes used to sell these timers where you put a plug into it. And of course, it went into the 120 volt plug, and it would shut off at the end every day, because in the Pentagon, they probably had, 10 to 15,000 plug-in loads. People were leaving on overnight every night, whether it was a coffee pot, a foot warmer, or whatever. So to deal with that, this is going back 20, 30 years, that was our solution. So every day they were required to turn the timer on 8 hours. And by the end of the day, we turn that plug load off. But you guys sound like you really know what you're doing. I think, Mark, you brought us a crack team here, and I could definitely see why you're listed as one of the top master systems integrators in the country, maybe the North America, maybe the world. But what do you guys see happening in the very near future in our business? I mean, they say disruption happens, and it's a two-sided coin. For everything that's negative, there's a positive opportunity. What's your philosophy on the state of disruption in our industries?
I think the biggest disrupting factor will be that, and I think you're already seeing it, Dave, big companies are going to move away from the walled gardens of the big players. Everything else is moving too fast around those walled gardens for that to be acceptable anymore. And then as that expands and as they're able to bring down those walls and bring their data together, machine learning is going to make a huge impact on this market. It's in its infancy now for solutions here, but as it can reduce the workload of facility managers and technicians and reduce truck rolls, reduce energy usage automatically without human involvement, that's going to be a huge, massive impact. And to pull that off for any company, you've got to have all the data pulled together.
I would add to that, one other component is the consumer experience is driving expectation and anticipation that this is available in commercial. And so I think for the folks who have not been willing to accept that because it's a B2B or it's a commercial play inside the industry, I think that's a short-sighted view at this point, because we now have people who are in the decision-making roles or they're influencers of the decision-making talking about their Ecobee thermostats or their Nest or, whatever. And that's driving a lot of surely we can do this another way. And frankly, a lot of those calls come to us and we're happy to take them. But I think that's going to be a big part of it, is a demand from the consumer side influencing the commercial side and the enterprise side. And then that in correlation to prices, right? The prices, you can get more data, you can get more visibility, you can get more control at less cost. And I think that's just a function of a maturing market in this era that we're in.
Very cool. Well, guys, listen, describe your ideal customer, if you would, and then also describe sort of the process. If we were to engage your services or customers to engage your service, sort of walk them through the process so they know what to expect.
And before you do that, can you, if you guys don't mind, could you weave in a actual case history? You don't have to mention the customer.
That's a great idea.
What their challenges were, what you guys did, and really the results, because I think people, want to know, you do all this stuff, what are some of the results you guys were targeting and were able to achieve?
So I think I'm going to give you two different examples side by side, because the worst thing I can do is convince you that you have to have 500 locations to do business with us. So for us, our ideal customer is at scale. They do need to have a large portfolio because we want to unify all that. We want to bring all those disparate systems together, and we want to be their trusted advisor across multiple problems they have across their footprints, right? So that is one part. And I'll share a walkthrough of that. The other one, though, is a customer who has a wide variety of needs that maybe doesn't have a lot of locations. But for example, one's a warehouse, one's a multi-tenant office space, and one is maybe a retail floor plan, right? And so maybe they don't have a lot of buildings, but they have a diverse set of needs. And so they're more demanding on different integrations depending on the format. They're more demanding on control and visibility regardless of the format. And they have an expectation that there's some people that can help them bring all that stuff together, because it's really a driver around please make my job easy because we have a lean team. We're too small. We can't do it all by ourselves. So we need some help. So I think those are probably the two personas. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, so taking the example of somebody at scale, we mentioned C-Store earlier, but I'll talk about a retailer in telecom, and I can't get into the details of them, but basically they wanted everything under the sun, from lighting control, HVAC control. They wanted metering and sub-metering, and to be able to have those analytics. And then about 500 different parameters needed to be met according to some of their energy compliance program needs. And so we're working with the energy team, we're working with the facilities team, and we're rolling out about 100 stores every year. Plus we did retrofits, and we're at about 1,600 or so, or I'm sorry, 1,200 or so buildings total now. But that's an all-in thing where we have complex questions around, can you do a deep data dive on this and tell us some trend information that our analysts can't do, because they actually have some analysts on staff, all the way down to the simple, like, can we just change our retail hours? And then, can we start identifying a new solution? So one of their Hawaii locations, for example, when we had all the volcano action happening, we actually customized a solution for them to actually detect that volcanic
Sulfur dioxide.
Thank you, sulfur dioxide. Yeah, and so that was an example of being able to be a trusted advisor, just jump in and solve that problem for them, so their staff could be cared for in that environment. Whereas on the smaller scale, we have a retailer that's a big internet name that has warehouse space, retail space, and an office space. And in that case, they're talking about facility managers that are super lean. They're growing in terms of their business is growing really fast, and they're actually outpacing their growth more so than they can actually manage their construction effort. And so in those cases, they're just sort of pushing to us saying, can you give me a floor plan view of my HVAC and my lighting? Can you help me see and stand up a UPS and generator and battery storage for our big warehouse? And this other one has cold goods storage, and we haven't thought about cold goods storage until now. How do we solve that problem? And so much fewer locations, so they're not a big portfolio, but they're really diverse in the types of problems they're trying to solve, and they want them solved pretty quickly.
Guys, this is awesome. Awesome stuff. Can we get you guys to come back on the show again? This has been great. I have a feeling we want to keep up with you guys. We want to see you guys grow. This has been a fascinating conversation. Congratulations to you guys. We need to get more IT people like you guys in our industry. Mark, thanks for bringing these guys on. I'm amazed. Justin, Adam, how do people get hold of you? What's the best website?
Sure. You can check us out at fsgenergy.com. There's everything you need there. There's some downloads you can grab, ebooks that we've put together, as well as contact form where we'll reach out to you typically the same day even.
Very, very cool. And Mark, linkspring.com as usual?
As usual, linkspring.com. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Listen, man, it's been a great conversation. Fellas, thank you so much. We'll be interested in tracking you guys. And again, we'd love to get you back on maybe every 6 or 7 weeks. Let's keep up with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Our friend Mark Peacock has agreed to stay on and help us with interview our next guest.
Gives me great pleasure to introduce Ken St. Clair, the owner and editor of AutomatedBuildings.com. We are presently on a very, very edgy theme, and we're here to talk primarily about the November issue of Automated.com, but we'll let Ken kind of steer that. Ken, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to see Mark here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to have, we got a party going. It's a party on the edge, I think.
Absolutely. So, party at the edge.
Party at the edge. Talk about the theme of the November issue, if you would, Ken.
Well, it's a continuation of this, Ken's gone over the edge saga, I guess, and there's no stopping him. And with inventing his own words and playing on the edgification. And was really pleased that Mark is tolerating me and is joining in my talking funny, and has a great article called DX. I'm so old. I remember when DX used to stand for direct expansion coils, but he thinks there's something else now. And then, of course, the other thing that really happened this month that was really great was to have Mr. Petsy just make it perfectly clear that I knew what I was talking about, because he's worked with me before and he understands that sometimes I don't quite have all the facts, but I'm always moving ahead. So he took the time to straighten me out and redefine what the edge is. And I think that was a very good exercise. We've got some good feedback on that.
Well, all right, let's talk about the edge. Let's stop right there for a minute. Let's talk about the edge, because LinkSpring says they own the edge, and John Petsy's redefining the edge, and you're redefining the words that describe the edge. So Ken and Mark, what is the edge?
Well, Petsy describes it, it makes it perfectly clear that what the edge is edge computer processing at the edge. And basically the simple term is we just move the processing and the analytics and everything that we were doing in the cloud, we just move it closer to the sensors and the data. And actually, I'd be real happy for Mark to jump in and clarify that and explain to us that DX is not direct expansion coils.
Well, I would agree with my friend John that, again, the way the technology is continued to move, and as developers and manufacturers, we're pushing it, that that you can do virtually everything you want to now at the edge. You can command and control, you can get the data, you can do the analytics and things like that. But, do you do everything there? In some instances, yes. And then in some instances, you still want to send some of that data, some of that information up to a cloud environment. So I believe there's opportunities for them to coexist. Again, depending on the need set and whatnot. And we're seeing, and I think, Ken, you've been writing about it. Ken and Eric, you guys have been talking about it for a while, and you're seeing it in your businesses too, that there are brand new opportunities. And we just talked to a guest from FSG, and a lot of their things is related to the edge and happening at the edge. So, the edge is here.
Well, I just wanted to kind of piggyback. First of all, I think it was a great October editorial, Ken St. Clair. There's two Kens here, so people might know, but Otto St. Clair, Ken alias Otto St. Clair, always helps Eric and I distinguish between if he's talking to Ken Smyers or Ken St. Clair. But we're having fun with it. I think you're doing some very, very pioneer work, some frontier work. I think that the challenges you're doing is that you're taking this gigantic nebulous concept and you're bringing it down into actual terms that one day will probably become pretty common terms. So education doesn't sound ridiculous to me anymore. I mean, because now that the more I say it, the more I realize that there's a whole industry that's positioning itself and aiming the direction of its future towards the edge, and doing it not just with HVAC, but everything. So the source of the data, the things that's actually producing data, we see as being the edge, the real frontier of how artificial intelligence and machine learning, everything's going to come into play, because now it's like everybody's got a responsibility. If you make something, you have a responsibility. If it produces data, you need to make that passage of data friendly as possible at the edge and into the cloud, where it could be, where it can really be processed in long terms, and where time allows can change, the algorithms or whatever's going down. But I just want to say that. So I thought you did a great job parlaying the October edition into the November edition, because now, as you invite commentary, as somebody like John Petsy comes in and really and truly, his whole background with Skyfound, everything's all about data. It's Sky Sparks and the sparking that helps people realize, the anomalies in their systems and all these other great things. By inviting, by challenging us to all reflect now what's going on in our industry, I think you really and truly might not realize it, but you're helping to formulate the transition point, or the tipping point of where we focused on everything but the really important stuff, and that was occupancy comfort, the interface between the occupants and the equipment, and making life more enjoyable inside of a building. So I think you're on the right track, and I think this edge now means that the technology is coming in, and as Mark says with DX, I mean, we're seeing a whole change of so you have to change the culture of the people involved in the HVAC industry, of the building facility managers, and of the service providers, because if you're not familiar with the vernacular, you're not going to be able to react quickly and stay on top of these issues. So I think you're doing a great job. I think November issue and Teresa's contribution, and the other guy that put in an Edge article, that we took kind of a challenging topic, and now you're really putting some definitions out there that will, I think, stay the course of time. So I think it's a very well done, very ambitious, but very well done.
Well, thank you. So now I get upgraded from auto to auto edge.
There you go.
Or Auto X.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Auto
probably good.
DX.
So
Actually, just a few things I wanted to add to that is, yeah, it's I'm amazed. Usually, when I start talking and writing, people go the other direction, but I've had great support in this from the industry. Everybody has got a little different twist on it, but we all think we're all kind of moving in the same direction. I think the other piece of this puzzle that is worth talking about is the collision of open hardware, open software, and open minds, actually, and the younger generation. My writers are starting to be under 40, and we're starting to catch a bit of this makers movement and starting to see how that is going to radically change. It allows the hardware to be built a lot simpler, a lot quicker. We actually have the situation that they can actually put together a actual formidable controller in a day that has features that none of our controllers have now, which would be automated auto learning and AI and machine vision, all these things which are kind of Star Trek-ish to us in the maker movement. This is all doable. So what we're going to see is we're going to see a blur of hardware. We're going to go through all the same problems we went through at the start of the DDC industry. Everybody's going to make a DDC product, and there's going to be it's going to be a mess for a while. There's no doubt about that. It's going to sort itself out. Standards will save us, and ironically enough, the traditional folks building controllers like LinkSpring, they have a deep knowledge in how to build bulletproof I/O. And basically, when the fan starts and a 200 horsepower contactor pulls in, it doesn't start everything else in the building that's connected to that panel because of stray voltage and stuff. So they've figured all that out. And it turns out that's one of the things as an industry, we've done amazingly well. So really all that's happening, I think, is we're getting a brain transplant. We're getting these new low cost, we're moving from the microprocessor industry into the microcomputer industry. So I think that's an interesting piece as well.
what is, and I want to hop in real quick and ask Mark a question, because Mark is the guy on the call that his company is actually has a working edge controller. So, Mark, speak about sort of the mechanics. What makes a controller an edge controller? What makes it different from another controller? And what should users ask for when they're asking for an edge controller?
Well, I think as we've said earlier, that things are moving further and further out on the edge, and that being able to connect, being able to get access data, be able to interpret that data and actually do something at that edge level without having to go up to the cloud. I think, again, that's it. And we saw this back in 2015 and actually based a lot of our strategic direction on and product roadmap and development in and around the edge and to the enterprise or device to the cloud. And today it's doing more locally, doing it where it happens in real time. And not every instance you need that, but in many instances we do. And for us, you'll be seeing, and again, I'll do a self plug that within the next couple of months, you'll see some new extended features and functions on our edge controllers, and some brand new edge controllers that are going to go even 2 or 3 steps further out than where we are today.
But the base of it, you got to have analytics or something. That's what makes it different. Right?
Yeah. Well, the base is is being able to access that data immediately and then do something with it.
Something at the edge.
Isn't that because Marcus, help me explain it. But one of the things LinkSpring did first was it ported Niagara. So in other words, you need a framework on the controllers. What we're seeing is a reduction of the footprint and the ability to put very powerful applications and a framework inside of a very small controller. Or that wasn't that people didn't want to do that at first, and then it wasn't doable at second. And now that it's doable and people want to do it, we're seeing an onslaught of amazing controllers. But it's because they put in the smarts in the parts, right?
Exactly. And again, we're moving to the IP world, which I don't say we're moving, we're already there. It's our IP controllers, and again, why not do it locally if you can? Why not?
I want to make a couple of quick points there. There's something that I think some people are missing as well, is when you move the analytics, the logic, and the self-learning out to the edge, it becomes less complicated because you're just learning about the VAV box you're controlling or about the room that you're controlling. So all of a sudden, the things that could be potentially hit, the questions that could be said, the visions that I might see with my machine vision are all fairly limited because I'm looking at just a piece of the puzzle rather than the cloud tends to look at analytics from a cloud point of view. It has to find out, is this building in San Francisco and all that kind of stuff. The edge knows where it is. Now, the other important piece that I want to tack into that is, again, Mark and John have led us out of the woods many years ago, is the haystack piece. And I don't think the edge could be successful without haystack. And I don't think anyone can really build a successful edge controller that doesn't have a haystack, that can't be self-discovered, can't be asked to share its data if it has data. So I think that's another important piece of this puzzle. It's all coming together. I got to admit it. It almost looks like John and Mark knew what they were doing a bunch of years ago. It's amazing they're still in this industry.
Congratulations, boys.
And just to add to that, I think too, one of the things is being able to process and gain value at the edge through the data is you're reducing the network feed. You don't have to clog up the network. Not that with today's technology you don't really do that, and the cyber part of it and all those types of things. And I think so. There's a lot of other value beside the business value. There's that operational value that doing things at the edge brings to the table as well.
Well, speaking of the operational value, a theme that Otto has been talking about for a while is the fact that it's more about the experience in the building. And, Mark, for control manufacturers like you, I think you guys are probably seeing this. We're seeing it in your products. When we had the interview earlier with your integrator, they're very aware of it. But it would seem like another benefit to the edge is you're going to make it easier to have that occupant experience be better. Agree or disagree?
I think we're seeing some great examples of that in some of these almost personal sensors and that are basically sensing if the occupancy, we're starting to track the occupancy through buildings. We know where the people are, know what they're doing. This whole phenomena of machine vision is an interesting concept because every cell phone now has 2 or 3 cameras in it. So the cost of the camera has dropped to almost our cheapest sensor. So making sensors that are visual is a real reality. And the other thing is that these sensors can not only act as occupancy sensors and know not only where the people are in the room, but where they are in the room. So we can basically, the light, the shading, whether the shades are up or down, we can record what kind of comfort level they want visually. So there's a whole other side of that. We're starting to get a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of parameters that we didn't have before. And some of these new buildings have more occupancy personal preference sensors than they have temperature sensors. That's an interesting concept too. So all of a sudden, actually, our last discussion with Jason Oak, he was talking about that the last systems integration he did, he had way more of these kind of points than he did the traditional points. That whole master systems integrator thing is an interesting piece of this puzzle too. I their job is just so amazing these days because they're having to integrate everything into the buildings. And these edge devices, there's going to be more and more edge devices, and not even going to be all of our edge devices. We're for sure are going to have edge devices that are not supplied by our industry. And we have to figure out how to best bring those into our systems and use their data.
You know, and Eric, just to add to your question, and where I see this data and analytics, it's a whole new area now where we've applied data and analytics to temperature and all the standard stuff that we're all have grown up in. But this whole idea about productivity, well-being, comfort, health, and that type of thing is now you're collecting data and doing analytics in and around that, in addition to your systems, your equipment, and your devices that actually manage and operate the buildings. And again, I think that's a whole new area that's starting to come across, and we as an industry need to be able to develop solutions, technologies, and services that address that.
For sure. Well, let's go back to the Ken St. Clair. Let's go back to our homepage on automated buildings. And by the way, for everybody out there in the Control Trends community, every month Ken puts out just a plethora of industry information, and he's joined by some of the smartest people in the business. It's like going to the library. If you buy like Life magazine to get a glimpse of the micro and macro worlds, we're seeing this happen on the different contributions you're getting, Ken. It's becoming quite a collection. And you recently made an addition, updated your industrial timeline, Smart Building Automation Evolution. Let's talk about that for a moment. What's that all about?
That's something that started many years ago. Actually, on our 15th anniversary, Teresa and I got together and built that thing, and basically built a timeline of how all of us came to be where we are. And actually, you're in that timeline, and Mark's in that timeline. Everybody in our industry is. I had kind of forgot about it, and we got it going before our 20th. This is our 20th anniversary. We got it going a little bit before, and I started sharing it with some of the IT people, and they were quite pleased because it gave them a reference of how complex all this stuff we do is and how many people it touches. So it's been good. Actually, the other day I just found another feature that I didn't even know it had, is if you get tired of looking at the 3D graphics that are flying at you, or the timeline that's going across the bottom, if you actually click on the slider bar to the right, it actually turns it all into text. And so if you want to look at it in a text mode, it gives you a summary that way, and you just roll through it. So anyway, interesting. It's a good summary of basically, if you need to catch up in the last 20 years, what happened, where did BACnet come from, where did DALI come from, where did KNX come from, what are they, where are they going, what's grid-wise, what's, all of these things that we've been part of. You can see Mark, and you can see John in the early days with Andover. You can see Mark in the early days with Tritium, and you can see the startup of Controltrends. All these good things are part of this evolutionary timeline.
So you can cool,
it's a well-kept secret. Yeah, we got to get this thing out in mainstream, because it is a very, very comprehensive litany of not only the evolution of the industry, but the people that made it up. And that's a very interesting thing. It's great pictures, great diagrams. It's basically the cliff notes of our industry.
And you can see the original day, I believe, or the day when Eric created the monster, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only. Just one comment about automated buildings. One of the features that I enjoy reading all the articles and all the contributions, both that Ken does as well as the other contributors. One of the unsung features that I feel I never hear you talk about that, Ken, is the Across My Desk, which is, I think, one of the coolest features that you have in that. You know, maybe you want to just briefly say what that is, and you know, what was your inspiration for it?
It's the bin where all the stuff that I don't know what to do with ends up.
Thank you. Exactly.
I actually that is the most amazing thing. I sit here running automated buildings, and often somebody will send an article that is incredibly profound, and then somebody will ask a question equally as profound, and they'll be 2 emails away from each other. And my involvement in the process is dragging the one email into the other one and sending them off and introducing these 2 guys and telling them to talk to each other. And I pride myself in that, as we have been a catalyst for the industry, and I try not to get too involved, as a good catalyst is supposed to just speed up the reaction and the process and not interfere with it. And I suspect sometimes I interfere with it, but for the most case, I like to kind of keep going and pull together communities and stuff. And this has been really fun just lately, because actually going over to Helsinki was a big eye opener for me, and I connected me to a whole bunch of European folks that are thinking similar to us, but a little bit different, and we're able to share a lot of that. But back to another one is I was just writing my next column, and actually that's an interesting one too, is the fact that I've been requested to write 2 monthly columns for Connected Contractor. Has been a very interesting thing in my life, because first of all, I have a deadline and I have to come up with a deliverable, which my only deliverable before was automated buildings, which was your deliverable. So it was just a matter of mixing it and pushing the button to make it come out. So now I actually have to read all that crap you guys are writing and try and make sense of it and write it into articles. And being able to do that and being able to quote the people who are contributing to automated buildings has created some amazing articles. And I've got some amazing compliments from those articles, which of course aren't my articles. They're just a compilation of all of the talent that is writing for automated buildings. And it's just kind of amazing. You know, some people think I understand what this industry is about, but basically it's just knowing the people and then actually reading what they've written, and then how does that relate to what he said, and try and build bridges between them and try and get them on the same page. And I think what we've done is I think we've captured the imagination of some of these young guns, and they're somewhat, in some areas, questioning what we're doing, but in other areas they are actually picking up and building on our wisdom, and I'm pretty excited about all that.
Well, you should be, Ken. And I tell you, catalyst is a great word for you. So Kenny, I think his new nickname is AutoCat.
AutoCat.
AutoCat. And Ken, I tell you what, you talk about some AutoCat, you talk about some young guns. The interview we had on right before you came on was a couple of young guys, a couple of Mark's customers, and you will be amazed at what they had to say. So listen, I'm going to have to go pick my son up here in a little bit, my 3-year-old, but before we do, Ken, can you give us an update on AHR, what's coming up? I know we've talked a couple of times about some of the events you were going to be hosting there, but could you give us an update? And for our community who might not know what you have going on in Atlanta, could you maybe quickly revisit those?
Okay, well, November is our first preview industry preview issue. It's a little early this year, and the reason for that is AHR is early. I hope everybody's got that, hits them on the head, and he's probably doing the same thing with Controltrends Awards. It's falling on you faster than you can imagine, because we're usually the end of January and we're even before the middle this year. Anyway, so we have on there, I've put together a preview of our sessions. We actually have 9 free sessions. Unbelievable. We actually had 10 on our education page. One was actually a Gridwise one, which they took back, which is a typical example of us being a catalyst. If there's stuff that's just hanging around and nobody will do it, I'll do it until they come to their senses and say, ooh, better not let Ken do that. We better take it back. So anyway, that worked out well. The Gridwise folks have got their own session. We've got a first one that's going to speak to building emotion, and I'm doing that with Scott Cochran. It's always fun. And young gun Brad White. Next ones are 2 lessons. Kim was real keen to have a program that we could have people get a toehold on our industry. And so it starts off with Scott Cochran. Then we've got the digital mindfulness session with Lawrence, Dr. Lawrence. So we're looking forward to that. And then the next day, Brad and I are going to try and pull together it's called From Ethernet to Emotion, and sort of the great, it basically will springboard off of the evolutionary piece that we were talking about before. And then after that, we have Haystack, one that actually Mark and John are putting on. And then after that, we have the open hardware, open software, open mind session by 40 young people under 40. And we're not involved in that. I'm going to sit in the audience, and Brad's going to moderate that. It looks like that's going to be a real fun session. And then after that, our 7th collaboratory community event, and we're talking about the human connection. And I can't wait to hear what all of our industry leaders, John Petsey, Mark. So anyway, it's should be a good talk. Looking forward to it. An awful lot of information is going to exchange hands in Atlanta.
No, I think there is. And of course, Mark Linkspring is going to have a booth at AHR as usual, and you got new products that you're showing. So you got to come to Atlanta because that's where the players play. And of course, before it all starts, we got the Controltrends Awards, and both these guys are going to be there. So I tell you, the November issue of AutomatedBuildings.com is out. Check it out for sure. I want to thank our guest, AutoCat Sinclair, the Catalyst, and Mark Batak, the MC from Link Springs. So guys, thank you so much for taking time to be with us this week. Appreciate you guys a lot.
Back at you.
All right, man, Kenny, that's it. Another week on Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings videocast and podcast. Special thanks to all our guests this week, including Mark Peacock and the team from FSG, and of course, our friend AutoCat Sinclair.
The one and only.
The one and only. So with that, Kenny Smyers, go get to feeling better, man. Take care of yourself. Remember, next week we'll have a special episode where we will announce the finalists for the Controltrends Awards. You're not going to want to miss that. Right. So until that point in time, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, and stay healthy.
Indeed, Eric. Big indeed.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers. Have a great week, buddy.
Yep.
Whew. All right. Dude,